Welcome back to the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett, and I don't even know what the NBA is anymore, so I spent the last 2 weeks catching up, which is why every award show I've had the same guest on, and not obviously foreign to you being here, but looking forward to being back. We'll talk about MVP award, Rookie of the Year. We'll have some fun awards here in just a minute with our again, many-time guest here, Grayson Hill. We'll talk to him in just a second. Don't forget, I'm going to forget all the plugs, but don't forget to follow on Twitter. I'll be updating where I am this next couple of weeks. I'll be at the PIT this weekend, the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament, covering some draft prospects there. I'll be there Friday and Saturday, so you'll see some content from that. You'll see some more content from me coming from the Everything College Basketball podcast because I'm now a contributor over there. So you'll see some other stuff lingering. But just keep up with everything on Twitter. You'll know what's going on. Don't forget SeatGeek if you're going to any concerts as the NBA season's starting to come to a close, starting the playoffs. Going to anything, sporting event, concert, whatever event in your town, code 2Pointers is 20% off, or $20 off, your first order. Everything down in the description below. All right, really quick. I had to get it out of the way. We can't delay this because there's going to be so much time really quick of what we're talking about. But introduce yourself. First of all, welcome back. Thank you. Introduce yourself, people that might be new here looking at this and going, I just want to hear this guy's NBA award picks.
Yeah, this is like my 8th or 9th time on here. It started out way back in the good old days when this pod first started, so it's always great to be back. Always happy to talk NBA with Trevor on and off the airwaves. But my name's Grayson Hill. I watch the NBA a lot. I'm a Thunder fan, so it's very odd hours. My sleep schedule does not exist during the NBA season. I'll play a lot of late games. Don't ever play on national TV either. So just bringing a unique small market perspective to this award season.
I love it. Yeah, don't feel like this is not a slight in any way, but it feels like you're starting to turn into the Joe House of this podcast, and that's obviously Bill Simmons' best friend from college, and he's, I think he brings him on whenever he wants to just talk to somebody he knows. So nothing against Joe House and his golf expertise, but don't take that as a slight. Joe House is hilarious. But
no, he's great.
I was going to show this really quick. Obviously, being at the Lakers-Rockets game, I didn't post much content from it. Somewhere on here is a Jalen Green number 4. The joke or the line I had to start us out was, I don't think there's a single Rockets piece of content in this entire spreadsheet to my right here or doc. So I wanted to, at least for my listeners' sake, not talk about the Rockets, and for the fans' sake, unfortunately, we won't be talking about them. So for the sake of our listeners, we will not be talking about them, but for the flip side of things, sorry, Rockets fans. But so I wore this in your memory, almost it's like a death of the season. Jalen Green did look really good. That's why I bought Jalen Green's jersey. I also made the joke to you that he might be the only guy with a contract after this 4 years. So we'll see what happens. No disrespect to anyone else, but they'll obviously fire coach and move on. So the Rockets are what they are. They were an unbelievable atmosphere for being 18-78 or whatever the hell they are. So they were unbelievable atmosphere. I have to give them credit for that. Obviously, I know that the home team being the largest market other than the Knicks is kind of a big reason that the crowd was pretty good. But I will say that the actual arena and the people and all that, it was a great time. I really do recommend. I've only been to 3 arenas, and I do think it's probably the second best one behind Madison Square Garden right now. I've only been to 3. Keep that in consideration. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed Houston. Are you ready for ballots?
Absolutely.
All right, so we laid this out as MVP. People only really care about the top 3 that they think we're gonna argue about. We're probably gonna agree more than people think. But the MVP, we have a top 5. We'll discuss maybe why or why not. Rip the Band-Aid off. Rookie of the Year and everything else, we have a top 3, and then we've got some fun awards at the end. We'll also do all NBA teams, which is where the most fun and conversation will come from. So without further ado, MVP of the NBA regular season is
Joel Embiid.
Okay. Tell me why, because I do not have Joel Embiid, and you probably knew that.
Yeah, I did. Not just for the sake of sparking a discussion between us. I just think this award, as like so many others, and even across sports, it's not as much what you do, it's when you do it. Philly had their weird bumpy stretch in like October, which seems like it was 18 months ago. Denver has slipped up recently. The big part of that was that it's awful loss to Houston, who we've mentioned too many times already, but that'll probably be the last time. The Celtics, you got Tatum also in the East. You've got obviously Giannis, the best player in the NBA. I think Giannis's problem is LeBron's problem through his career in his prime. He's the best player in the league, so it's hard to really put into perspective what he's doing, as historic as it is year after year. He's got 2 already. I think he'll add to that cupboard. I just don't think it'll be this year. So I'll take Embiid. This is going to be the year if Philly shakes their demons. I think it'll be this year. The East is the best conference this year, so it's going to be very, very tough. I would be a bit surprised, to be brutally honest, if they do come out of the Eastern Conference, but I don't know if they're going to have a better shot at it, just given what they've put together this year and obviously this stretch, especially recently, that Joel Embiid has been on. So I think it was a last-second steal type thing from Nikola Jokic, and I think Embiid will be the MVP.
So, very easy answer. Unfortunately, I did not have Joel Embiid, but I think, all jokes aside, I have a really hard time giving it to a guy, and Giannis's quotes really helped hammer this down, and I'd hate this to be this close, but honestly, Joel Embiid's been really, really good. 66 games played. All these guys have played no more than 75 games, so it's not even a games thing anymore. Luckily, they all would qualify by one game, basically, or more. Right. So good, good on Joel Embiid there, managing the minutes throughout the year, 34.5 minutes throughout the year. 33 points per game, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. I'm only throwing this out there because there's no real statistical difference other than Jokic shoots 6 less shots. To spoil it, I do have Nikola Jokic as the 3-time MVP. In terms of just sometimes why we think of the MVP, and I know Perk gave a really crappy way to discuss this narrative, but I'm going to leave it at that, about what we change and what we think. Sometimes it's about what we see, and sometimes when I sit back, actually all the time, when I sit back and watch Jokic, as talking about the night game thing earlier, I watch a lot of Nuggets games, a lot of Kings games. That's why I'm fond of both of these teams as much as anybody this year. Sometimes when I watch Jokic, or most of the time, I think, okay, I never saw Larry Bird play. I never saw, Bob Cousy. I never saw guys like that were supposed to be kind of wizards from a passing standpoint, or whatever. But I just can't help think, like, this guy, you pluck him off of his team, and it's how you value most of your player, or most valuable player, excuse me. We'll get to that later. But you take him off this Nuggets team, and I mean, they were a 6 seed with no good second supporting star, with Jamal Murray being hurt and Michael Porter Jr. being in and out of the lineup. MPJ did play 60-plus games this year, which is awesome. It didn't feel like that many because every time I feel like I was watching, he was on the bench, but I guess it was only 20-ish times. With that being said, I don't want to give an MVP to a guy who it feels like the media, and that's how we talk about things now and how we push for things. It's one of the only – Joel Embiid's the only guy that him and his front office have, like, had to put out these hit pieces basically to get him the MVP. And I don't want to hold that against him, like, that hard, but, like, Giannis doesn't care as much, whether he admits it publicly or not. Jokic, we clearly know, doesn't. He was riding horseback 2 weeks after his MVP. I mean, literally got a video of him riding a horseback through the Serbian countryside. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? So he doesn't care, right? And it's not about that. But I don't think it's appropriate that you need to be putting these pieces out through The Athletic and Daryl Morey's comments and all these different things. And Daryl Morey was changed and not changed, was discussed in 6 different ways why his theories were ridiculous. So at the end of the day, Joel Embiid, I don't think deserves MVP for that reason. That's not what I'm saying. When I look at Joel Embiid, I think really strong, impactful two-way player. But with Jokic, I think most valuable, and I think if you take him off of and put him on any team, they're a 6 seed or better in any regard with any talent, and that's basically what the Nuggets did for 2 years, and they're the 1 seed now, and they're dominating, and he's the reason for that, and he's taken up a step in terms of his efficiencies, despite the fact he's shooting 6 less shots. So that was an 8-minute answer. So anything about why or why not? Why are we not talking about Giannis would be the question.
I think it's fatigue, and it's tough to say fatigue when the guy that is right there in this race is the 2-time defending MVP. Giannis won the 2 prior to Jokic's 2, potentially 3-year run with this award. It's kind of like what I mentioned, though. It's the LeBron effect. It's, okay, this guy's the best player in the league, therefore it's, for some reason, not necessarily a good one, less impressive when he stuns us with historical stats and milestones, and his splits this year have never been accomplished on 55% shooting. They have the best record in the NBA by 5 games. That's with Chris Middleton being in and out of lineup. That's a testament to Budenholzer as well, and the job he's done as coach to guide them through a season that was far from perfect. But I think that it's crazy to think that he might not finish 1 or 2. Like, it really, really is. But it also speaks to how special the years Embiid and, of course, Jokic are having, statistically, impact-wise. I really like that point about Jokic, because I think that line of thinking, as far as you pick him up and put him on a roster, they're going to fight towards the bottom of the playoff bracket regardless of what situation he's in. That's what won Westbrook his MVP.
They were
and I'm very familiar with that one. Exactly. And so I think I can't fault that line of logic, because I was screaming it from the mountaintops a couple of years ago when Westbrook won his. So I can absolutely agree with you on that point. I just think, again, for better or for worse, it's what you do and when you do. And I think this tear Embiid has had, and the point in the season he had it, and Jokic probably more consistent throughout, but it's kind of like the shock value we've been getting lately is from Embiid's stat line. And that 52-point night against Boston, I think it was a week and a half ago now.
That was it.
I think
that was the moment.
I
do too.
It's almost like a Heisman moment, which, 82 data points, you'd like to not decide it on one game, but you can certainly close the door, I think, with a performance like that.
I don't want to drag MVP on forever, because I think we'll have more fun with some of these conversations about the smaller awards. I think that's just how we are as NBA fans and friends. But I want to get ahead of the thought process people are probably having right now is like, okay, who's the best player in the world to you?
Giannis.
So why is it not Giannis? And I know people are going to think about
exactly.
it. They're going to be like, and I know you mentioned fatigue, but I want to get ahead of that, because people are going to sit here and be like, well, why are we not giving the MVP to the best player? Best player in the world doesn't mean valuable always sometimes. There's things Giannis can't do, right? Jokic right now statistically is doing things that we haven't seen in a long time, if not ever, depending on what stat you're looking at. So it blows my mind that like that part of it is not taken into consideration more. And I think we're having the same fatigue problem with Jokic, was the point I was making, was kind of encompassing all this together. Yeah. And it's the thing I hate about the MVP the most, which is why I didn't want to talk about it. I do really want to throw this out there just as like a, hey, by the way, I want to look more into this a little bit more detail. Last time I looked at this a few years ago, the MVP tracker for Basketball Reference has been very, very good and very, very accurate. Voting wise, obviously, it's hard to contrary some of people's thoughts and what they already believe. The people like I mentioned, what's his name earlier, Perk, but he literally has already documented basically that he voted for Giannis, even though he was on Embiid's train the whole year. So it's weird. I know you can't control that kind of stuff. But Jokic has a 57.4% probability to still win the MVP, which is the lowest it's been all year. Want to be clear on that. And it's historically has been good. So where are we going to end up with that? I'd love to look at this and clip this in a couple of weeks whenever we find the answer out. But anything else about the top three before we do 4 and 5 and then keep rolling? Because, again, MVP I love, but I can't do it forever.
Yeah, I don't think there's truly a wrong answer in this top three. I think there's a better right answer, and there's a million different ways to get there. And like you mentioned, we'll find out. I think it's June. They've pushed this back a little bit.
Yeah, they've done this stupid award ceremony and with Draymond Green and Drake trying to be comedians, and it's dumb. I like it. I am in the small minority of their votes are due 3 days later, because they used to do mail votes when they used to do this. You remember David Robinson? Yeah. David Robinson scored 60, was it 68 or 69?
Something insane.
To get the scoring title, and it won him the MVP or something. And then they presented the MVP award like a week later before the playoff series against the guy that came in second. I think it was Akeem or something. And they went stupid against each other. It was crazy. I love that. I think it's great. I think we need to bring that back, but
I'd prefer that to finding out in 6 weeks for sure.
When the conversation has come to a halt, it's like
there's no more debate on it. Yeah,
it's so dumb. They want to
some of these guys aren't even playing. Actually, most of them by that point aren't playing anymore. So I agree.
All right, who do you have at 4 and who do you have at 5? Because I think I know one of the two.
If my shirt hadn't given it away yet, I'm going to be on the Shea Gilgeous-Alexander train. And
at 4 or 5 though?
At 4.
Okay.
Because I think if you look at this team won 38 games, there was 2 bad losses towards the end. They easily could have been, won 40 games, should have been a 42-40 team. They're the inverse, 40-42. If you take Shea Gilgeous-Alexander off of this basketball team, they win like 6 games.
It's so bad though, because I don't think that. I think that y'all are more talented than you're even.
I love Jalen Williams more than 95% of this country. I love Josh Giddey. I love Usman Jing. I love Trey Mann, JRE.
Such good talent. It's crazy.
Dario Saric, who will now be a Thunder legend just because that's how we got rid of Darius Baisley. I don't know. I think we'd be losing to Memphis by 70 again if we didn't have him. I think that gap, and you mentioned it with Jokic, and that's why I tried to
be careful.
Hint towards maybe I was going to use that a little bit later. But yeah, it's been incredible to watch his leap. I think individually has been awesome to watch too. You can go from good to great, but great to elite is a much tougher jump, and I think we've pretty much seen it this
great
year.
To all NBA. Sorry, I'm not getting ahead of ourselves here, but like going from great player to all NBA team is ridiculous, which is we'll talk about in a minute. But Jeez, I mean,
Absolutely.
So I'm not surprised you went with 4, which means you probably have Tatum at 5.
Yes.
All right, I have Tatum at 4 and Shea at 5, and I'd like to save my thoughts on Shea for the end, for a little bit later, because I do want to talk about it. He'll come up at least one more time, guaranteed.
Absolutely.
Twice is debatable. We'll see what happens. But anything else about the MVP, the way we look at it? This is the place to just get it out now, because I'm not talking about the MVP again until October. So,
it's the most polarizing award debate every year because it means so much legacy-wise and history-wise, and this is going to go down in the history books of this league and its storied history, and this is adding to it. So I think it's one that you really want to get right. And like I mentioned, I don't think we're going to get it wrong this year necessarily, but 2/3 of people that debate about this will end up being wrong. So I think that's where we're going to see a lot of this discourse maybe trend negative, which is unfortunate, but that's just how the media is, especially in sports. You kind of want to hate your way to a point rather than build guys up and go from that angle. But
that's why I love JJ Redick, because he does his best. As much as you hate Duke, as much as you hate JJ Redick, not you, but people hate Duke, people hate JJ Redick because of just his prior history of things. And he is the best at being like, whether Perk's there or not, he's the best at being like, you know what? Whether I think Jokic is the MVP or not, you're wrong. And here's why you're wrong, and here's respectfully why it's okay that you're wrong. He's super good about being like, hey, it's okay that you're an idiot, basically, is what he does.
Yeah.
But then he does it politely for 8 minutes.
He holds your hand and walks you through it. Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. Does he have a vote? Do we know? Does he have a vote this year? I really think he does.
I am not current. I have not watched his most recent episode where he talked awards. I am not sure.
God, I hope he has a vote. Oh,
I think he put out an award show like today or yesterday. Okay. I need to listen to it.
I'll watch it and see if he did. Because if whether he has a vote or not, he'll at least say what his answer is.
Yes.
They're not allowed to until the season concludes, voters. So it's like they're allowed to say it soon. I don't even know why they're allowed to anyway when we're going to find out in 2 months, because then there's actually a running spreadsheet. You can find it on NBA Twitter somewhere. There's a spreadsheet.
I've seen it.
Together.
I've seen some Thunder people looking at Coach of the Year and stuff like that. Yeah.
It's great. There's a running spreadsheet of all media, and Perk was the first person to pop up, which is how I found out about it, which I thought was funny. Yeah. Still my most liked tweet this year about Perk. So anyway, Rookie of the Year is Paolo Banchero. Why is it not someone else?
Because I'm a Thunder fan. No, I'm kidding. It's Paolo.
Yeah, let's just not even. I love him to death, and I love this Magic team, and I love everything that they're about. Yeah. They are unbelievable, and I'm really sad because I wanted to go see them. I was supposed to see them in December against Atlanta, and just it didn't work out. Flight got delayed 12 hours, whatever. Like I'm still mad about it, but yeah, Paolo Banchero is ridiculous. I don't care that he shot 1% from 3 for the better part of 45 days. It is what it is. He's not expected.
It is what it is.
But the fact that we're seeing like Carmelo Anthony type flashes from a rookie, I'm in. I was in before. I should have been in as a number 1 pick, and I don't regret having Chet number 1, but I really regret at least not thinking about Paolo differently looking back on it, because I feel like the Paolo bandwagon number 1 people were very okay with it then, and they just were so quiet, and they were like, I actually still have him 1. I just saw all these things, and it's just really funny because I don't want to get too much into draft and too much into Paolo, but it really did challenge me as an evaluator for this year, because I looked at Paolo last year and I saw all these little tiny things I didn't like that was very similar to Carmelo, because as much as I love Carmelo as a top 3 player in my opinion, like my favorite players of all time, he still was he did some of the dumbest things ever with the ball sometimes. Right. So Paolo can do the same thing. And I saw all these little things, and I kept making these little like, okay, this is why he's 3 or 2. I think I had him 2, so I guess it's not that big of a deal. But it's the fact that of like, why didn't I have it 1? And then now he's like the runaway rookie of the year. So whatever. Right. It is what it is. I have Jalen Williams at 2, which was why I was trying to like talk around the point and then come down and land the plane. I really think it kind of sucks that there is a literal 1 Paolo gap, because I like Rookie of the Year because I think it's fun to show like how good the rookie, which is why I want to do a rookie team. I think that's actually worthy of the conversation. But Jalen Williams is unbelievable. I think the last 30 games got him number 2 on my ballot.
Yeah, 19-6-4 since February. Brief absence from Shea. He stepped up incredibly well, and every game mattered, as this team saw, until Dallas literally just quit with like 2 days left, which thank you, Mark Cuban, for that. They're going to get fined, and I don't know if they're going to lose draft picks or not, but that's going to be.
Someone, Mavs Draft, shout out to Mavs Draft on Twitter, he said, "Oh no, a second we don't own. That's okay."
They really don't give the Thunder an imaginary second round pick again. That's fine.
It's fine.
We'll just add another pick to the second round and give it to the Thunder, and we will call it even. But yeah, I think it's just incredible to see from the 12 spot too. I know draft slot isn't a super relevant thing with this award, but just seeing how he's played as
in the back of our mind, though.
Right, one of the better players in this class from the 12 slot. So again, huge props to Sam Presti for doing things we don't understand, and then they step on the court, and you're like, oh, that's why you took him there. So I think it's another hit for Presti. I'm really excited to see him Wednesday night in the play-in. Coming out of Santa Clara, really not a very hyped prospect until he got to the pre-draft festivities and some of his measurables came out, and they got to see him doing some runs on the court. But yeah, I've got him too. I tried for about 30 seconds to talk myself into putting him one, but I just can't take away from Paolo in the year he's had. I would love to see Paolo in the play-in next year with this Magic team. I think they're pretty dangerous. They beat some good teams in Orlando this year, a lot. I think Boston like twice maybe in a weekend or something crazy like that. Like they at home, look out. That was not a team you could just roll into on a Sunday at 3:30 and just go through the motions and beat by 15. So I think that Paolo 1 and Jalen Williams 2 for me as well.
That's what makes me sad about not being able to go to Amway Center, because it is one of the coolest of places whenever it's popping. And they obviously, I think they lost to Atlanta. Trae Young had like 35 that game. Whatever, it is what it is. Number 3, Walker Kessler for me. I don't think we probably have any disagreement there. And I don't want to spend forever on it because we're going to talk about those 3 guys. Those 3 guys will be. It's just a matter of who the other 2 guys are on our all rookie teams. But Walker Kessler had some ridiculous. Shout out to Josh for texting me some of these all-time stats for him as a rookie and some of his all-time stats as a defender. I don't have them in front of me. I think Walker Kessler, regardless, just what he's given to a team that honestly, 2 years ago, I would have never even thought he was a draftable prospect. Sitting behind, it was a Baycott and who was it? Day'Ron Sharp, and him and Day'Ron Sharp were on the bench sitting behind Baycott and. Oh, man, what was the guy's name? Brooks or something like that, man. Garrison Brooks. But, yeah, he was sitting there going, I want to shoot threes more, and I want to defend, and I want to show what I'm worth. And it's like, no, you shut up, sit down, and sit behind Baycott. And that's basically what it was. And 2 years later, he's valuable, and he's an all-rookie team type of player and a Rookie of the Year candidate. So Walker Kessler, some of the defense that he's offered from what Lowry can't on the Jazz, it's been awesome to watch.
Yeah, I'm with you there. He is in my 3 slot as well.
Defensive Player of the Year, I'm hoping that you can fly the plane, because I didn't like any candidate. I'll be honest. This was one of the years where I was like, wow, they all have reasons I hate them, and I love them all equally from the things I do like. So, wow, I was like, there could have been 6 people, 7 people, 12. Right. Your best team's defender. He deserves it. Honestly, I even thought twice about Alex Caruso a couple times.
If he had gotten in the starting lineup sooner, I really think it could happen.
I'm with you.
The Patrick Williams experiment went on like 6 weeks too long, so I think that truly cost him this award.
82 games, Patrick Williams, by the way. So Defensive Player of the Year, I'll be quick. I have Evan Mobley, because when he's playing and he's playing well, and they're putting him in positions, and I mention this all the time with people, so people probably sick of hearing this, but they play him almost like a free safety, and they let him roam, and they let him play in that power forward switch spot so that he doesn't get caught up in drop coverage and things like that. So when they let him do that against pretty versatile young teams, it's really hard against more of like a, you put him up against a Brook Lopez, you put him up against, a Joel Embiid. Obviously, Joel Embiid can beat anybody, but you put him up against a typical big, it's a little bit harder to see. That's why Jared Allen plays the role he does, but when they let him be versatile and use length, I really just think Evan Mobley is one of the best defenders in the NBA, and I'm super excited to see his growth, and I think he deserves the props. He won't win it probably, but I have him 1 because I think neither of the guys at 2 or 3 had a more convincing case, and that's just okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I agree with the lack of the convincing winner here. I use that to go a different route. There's been a lot, maybe more than ever, made of games played in these awards and accolades and recognition, things like that.
We will talk about that in a few minutes.
When this kid's on the court, you're not coming to the rim. It's Jaren Jackson Jr. Yeah. I think as much has been made. I mean, I watch Shai Gilgeous-Alexander drive 25 times a game every night, but when he is in the game, and if you drive to the basket and it's not your best, it is getting sent into the 3rd row. And we saw it time and time again. This Grizzlies team made a lot more noise off the court than on. Unfortunately, none of that had to do anything with Jaren Jackson Jr. Unfortunately, health, another reason he probably ultimately won't win this award. I don't even think he played 60 games. I think he's like 58 maybe. But from what I've seen when he's on the court, I think in a year where there's no true runaway winner, no Gobert or Draymond Green absolutely just seizing the award in November and it's kind of over, I'm going to take a shot and give it to Jaren Jackson Jr.
So I'll be quick on this. So Brook Lopez, I had it 2, and Draymond Green, I had it 3. And you're probably like, well, dang, Draymond made it this year even. When he's on the court, they are a top 5 defense. When he's off the court, they're a bottom 6 defense. So I had to take that in consideration. And at the end of the day, I didn't penalize Jaren Jackson Jr. for anything games played wise, because ultimately that will matter eventually. I know that's for. If I remember correctly, with all the CBA stuff that just got signed, that is for all awards. That is for all awards,
yes,
all NBA teams. So it doesn't matter. So, yeah, I mean, give it to him while you can, I think would be the thing. And I would love to see him to have a really good, solid 68-game, 75-game season next year. I don't expect 82 out of anybody anymore, to be clear. I am not in that camp. I think the season's too long anyway. So if you play 72 games, if you play between 65 and 72 games, I'm fine. Like, it is what it is. I'm not going to hate you for it. And that shows because all of our MVP candidates literally played 71 games, I think, or whatever it was, 66 on average.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
So all of them barely made it qualifying anyway. So I went with Brook Lopez because to see a guy in Brook Lopez go from one of the worst defensive centers in the NBA when he was in Brooklyn and offensive firepower to just completely change his career around and almost win this award this year for me is ridiculous. Some of the stuff with him at the rim is ridiculous at that age. Like the fact that he's getting up and just doing what he's doing at that age is just crazy. And then I should have probably had Jaren Jackson Jr., I'll be honest, but I gave him the midseason award, which I felt like is kind of like a cool midterm, whatever it is, what it is. I gave you credit
recognition.
Then.
Yeah, right.
It is what it is. He was just getting back, and that's I can't discredit him for it.
Yeah, I had Lopez 2, Mobley 3. Draymond would probably be my honorable mention at 4. So yeah, I think
I'm glad Mobley at least made it for you though, because I thought I was crazy.
Oh, absolutely.
At first.
Yeah. No.
There's some guys that are left off that the OG Ananobis of the world and stuff, but
right, which was that horrible wrist injury, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a minute with all defensive team. But it's a combination of these 3 guys are going to be on those teams again. It's the same thing as the rookie team. Yeah. So I told you before we started, 6th man of the year, most improved player, and coach of the year. I had more things written down than the previous 3 awards, and I'm kind of glad we just throttled through those. So 6th man of the year, you said that we were probably going to be all over the place. So I'm going to start with 3 on 6th man of the year because, again, people made it this far. They heard what they gave a crap about, and they've left. I can see it on YouTube.
Right.
You're not hiding from anybody. I can see your watch time. So anyway, Malik Monk is my number 3. I told you I looked at odds, and I looked at some other things and tried to figure out where I was missing. He's 2nd in bench minutes this year with 1,719, which sounds like a lot now that I think about it. Is that actually wrong? No, that's not wrong. That's plenty. Okay. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, did I actually look at career? I was like, wait a minute. No. 2nd in bench minutes, 1,719. Impactful scoring guard that plays crunch time for them. That was what made a difference for me. You can be a 6th man of the year and still play crunch time. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox we'll talk about it, is the runaway Jerry West Trophy Award winner, probably. But Malik Monk is ridiculous. He's had a resurgence. I think the last year's year in LA really got him on the map again, and that's what got him the contract after having a very big roller coaster ride in Charlotte. I think he deserves number 3 on my 6th man of the year list.
I did not take it nearly as seriously. I had to take at least one shot at the Lakers, so I put Russell Westbrook parentheses Lakers on there.
Yes,
and not to disrespect anybody outside of the top 2 for me. I just think it was one of those things where I could have picked out of a hat and had one of 6 names. The points you made about Malik Monk sold me pretty well. You're exactly right. He does play very, very significant minutes for them. Compliments De'Aaron Fox, who again we'll get to later in his role in these awards. But I think that is a much more legitimate and much more worthy number 3.
Emmanuel Quickly is number 2, and before I get into who you probably have at number 2 as well, you could have given me anybody. My preseason pick was Norman Powell, who, by the way, was still top 20 in bench points.
Yeah, he was right there.
In bench minutes, excuse me.
Another injury guy, unfortunately.
And I knew that when I picked him, but I was like, this is going to be the pick. You know how every year we do them, and we're like, all right, we know that MVP, whatever you're going to have, you're going to be pretty close on MVP. You're going to be pretty close with Coach of the Year unless somebody has a turnaround, whatever. So, like, with MIP and with 6th man of the year, it's literally like going –
exactly.
Oh, cool! I was somewhere I actually hit the dartboard, which is cool.
Right.
And I was really hoping that was going to be one that I was going to screenshot or like clip an audio clip of in 6 months and be like, see, this is why Norman Powell did. And then they changed their whole roster in February. So you know what?
Yeah.
Bite me, Clippers. So Emmanuel Quickly is number 2 for me. The stats don't jump out. They don't blow me away. They're not like, oh my God, this is why Emmanuel Quickly is amazing. But I mean, he's had performances, and you mentioned like the Embiid stamp that he had a few weeks ago against Boston.
Yeah.
He had that against whoever the heck it was a few weeks ago, and he had 38 or whatever it was, double overtime win, big shot making. The fact that he's a young guy that Tibbs plays actually mattered to me a little bit, which I thought was funny. But I probably said everything you were probably going to say. So anything about Emmanuel quickly that we disagreed on or agreed on, I guess.
Yeah, it's semantics, but I feel like a lot of his best performances of the year he started. So I struggled to really put him, I mean,
Number one.
I get it. Right. I think he's an excellent young player. If Tom Thibodeau plays you more than 13 minutes a game before you turn 25, you've got something going right for you.
Quentin Grimes, same thing, who did start more than him. So.
Right. So I think this is a Knicks team that suddenly has a lot of exciting young depth. Behind Randall, he gets in foul trouble a good bit, but he's reeled that in, so it hasn't been as much of an emergency basis. But I think that, Grimes is another guy on this Knicks team that I'm actually really excited to see where they fall in the rotation as they enter a really, really good-looking series with the Cavaliers in the first round next week. But, I've got quickly, too, as well.
Yeah, and unfortunately, and I thought these were going to be more fun than they were, but we probably both have Malcolm Brogdon at number one.
Yeah, we do.
I'm going to lay out the case on why for me. It was pretty convincing otherwise. He played 67 games for him, which is a revelation, we'll call it, and because of his injury history, and that's no disrespect. But you mentioned earlier about like rookie of the year and position on being drafted. It's not necessarily what matters, but it is important. I mean, he was drafted, 34th overall or something like that. I don't even remember. He was rookie of the year that year, 2016-17.
Right.
So, I mean, he was
with
drafted
Indy,
in the second round. Yeah. So, at the end of the day, guys like that things like that have to matter in the background, and injuries and, games played are something we're dragging on now as a media culture, but that has to matter, and that's what I'm comparing it to.
Absolutely.
Rookie of the year mattering, and this is mattering as well. Dragging it on, but 67 games played, but it was the splits that really blew me away. 14.5 a game, 14.9. Let me just give them the respect. 4.2 rebounds, 3.7 assists. Obviously did they end up finishing first or second in Boston? This is how behind.
Second, a game back in Milwaukee. Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, this is how far I've gotten. This is how far into college basketball I've gotten in March. 3.5 assists, 48% from the field, 44% from three. And 87% from the free throw line. For those of you that are currently right now typing up the comment, well, how many attempts from three? He shot 4.5 attempts, so I think that's really impressive. Almost a 50, 40, 90 guy. So off the bench, and I think he's deserving of it on a really good team.
That was my one note for him, 44% from three. I mean, that, as good as Boston is, having that available off the bench. Also, like Monk is available to play key minutes if needed. I think that's big too, availability-wise. You mentioned the 67 games played, which unfortunately has not been what we've seen over the course of his career, as you alluded to. But I think that when things do change for the better, I think they should be rewarded. And I think that this award, in Brogdon's case, is a great way to do it as they enter another hopefully deep run. They're looking to defend their East title. So really, really fun to watch this team.
Almost a mini comeback player of the year award, which is what MIP kind of feels like. This is 6 man of the year. We're not even on MIP yet, but Malcolm Brogdon just could have won MIP 3 times in his career already because of the injuries. Played 35 games,
peaks and valleys.
Trade, it sucks, and this is a cool tip of the hat for him. So,
absolutely.
Speaking of MIP, I'm going to give you 3 and 2, and I'm going to get out of the way. So I'll be really quick on 3, unless you want to discuss it. So I kind of did the same thing you did with 6 man of the year with 3, is I kind of went, yeah, honestly, this award's kind of stupid, so I just went with number 3. Is Markelle Fultz has been unbelievable in Orlando, giving Orlando a nod. I have no stats written down other than lead guard for Orlando, has been the pivotal ball handler and leader that they've really needed, and he's improved his shot tremendously from a mechanics standpoint and from a confidence standpoint, and he honestly hasn't even had to even really lean on it ever because of what I think Paolo's opened up for them. Just when you watch the Magic, you watch them and you kind of take away, okay, Paolo's really good, Franz is really good. And then you start going, okay, where's Jalen Suggs? Well, he's not doing, whatever, he's trying to figure it out. Markelle Fultz has been what Jalen Suggs is supposed to have been here in the next couple of years. So I'm not giving up on Jalen Suggs. I'd love to keep my house on Jalen Suggs Island, but I currently am going to look for a small condo on Markelle Fultz Island. So this is the moment I'm talking about it, and it's out there. But Markelle Fultz has been unbelievable. Lauri Markkanen was my number 2. Again, I'm going to just tell you 2 and 3, and I'm going to get out of the way. But 15.5 points per game average over the previous 5 years for Lauri. That was what sold me. I was like, I forgot that he was still a teetering 15-point-per-game guy. He averaged out at 15.5 for the last 3 years. He has now 25.5 on better percentages on higher volume. So, and ridiculous percentages too, somewhere in the 40s and 50s, right? So,
right.
Lauri, I mean, this was his award to lose about
Oh yeah.
35 games in,
Right.
when they were winning. Now, if they were a
Yeah.
play-in team, maybe it's a
I agree.
conversation. But
Yeah. They were the one
I,
seed for 2 weeks. Yeah.
yeah, there you go.
I
So
mean, it
like,
was, yeah.
whatever convincing reason Jazz fans needed to be like, all right, Laurie's our building piece. Like, well, okay, anyway.
Right.
But Laurie's there, and he's unbelievable. And it's another instance. We talked about Danny Ainge way too long that time when we did the all-time GM draft,
Right.
which still was one of the funniest segments ever. I had a really good time with it, though. But I have a lot of the same things to say about my number one, but I will fill in whatever you don't say. So, without further ado, why is Shea Gilgeous-Alexander the most improved player?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it earlier. He went from a great player. Well, he started his Thunder career as an interesting, maybe gonna flash trade piece for Paul George, and was like, okay, Sam Presti must have seen something. I don't know what I truly expected his ceiling to be when that deal went down. It was not first team All NBA. I'll go ahead and just get that out of the way. But I mean, this guy is just ridiculous. Every single night, he's putting up 25, 30 points, getting it done. He's feeding guys. I mean, he's playing with a second year and a first year guard as their primary scorers. Lou Dort kind of fallen off offensively a bit. He's made up for that and then some, up near the top of the league in scoring, 30 a game. I believe he held on to that even through the late stretches of the season. I mean, the jump he had from last year, I was kind of like, kicking my feet around at him not making an all-star team. I mean, this year, I don't know. This award was made for a jump like this, I think. And a lot of times we think, okay, like a good player got better. We kind of waste this award. But I think in this case, the jump he's had from the levels I mentioned earlier, from a great player to, if you don't have him second team All-NBA, what the hell are you watching? I mean, he is literally a top four in that respect guard in the entire NBA, in little Oklahoma City, who scratched and clawed for the 10 seed. And I think, when we get Chet back and have another round of draft picks, and I think that'll only just increase the trajectory upward. But I think that this kind of like Memphis-esque path run right now, where we get in the play and maybe stun Denver, Steeler game, maybe two, if we can even get there. But yeah, I mean, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is the engine behind the most unforeseen team in the play-in this year. I think that we project to win like 20 games, especially once Chet went down in that preseason freak thing. Even with his talent and Shea being there, and guiding along these young guys, like I mentioned, no one had us winning 40 games. People, I mean, 30 was a stretch. I think the betting line was like 24 and a half, 23, something ridiculous like that, and we surpassed that much earlier than expected. So I think that, for all the reasons individually as well as a team, he is the driving force behind it. I think he'll land on a lot of MVP ballots as well. So I think if you're going to have him go from all-star snub to MVP ballot, I don't know how you don't have him most improved.
So I'll lay out a couple things and we'll keep going. So field goal attempts up to percentage up 5%. And I value that more than most people.
Right.
3-point attempts down 3, percentage up 4. Free throw attempt up 3. I'm just rounding, by the way.
Right.
Up 9% on 3 more attempts. Rebounds fluctuating around the same. Assists fluctuating around the same, which just blows my mind because he doesn't even need to do that right now. 1.6 steals per game. Almost won the steals title. I just want to put that out there.
It was
OG
right
Anunoby,
there.
1.8 for OG Anunoby. We'll get to him later. If my only knock right now, under three turnovers per game, by the way.
Yes.
1 block a game. I'm keep going. 31 and a half. If my only knock right now is that you're averaging 2.8 fouls per game,
right,
you're an All-NBA first-team player regardless of what everything I just said. The other thing is I really love the value of when a player is not just a one-trick pony, and I'm going to tell you something he's a one-trick pony at, but then I'm going to tell you why it's important. You mentioned drives, right? You watch him drive 25 a game. You're really close, 23.9 per game. He leads the NBA in drives. At one point, he was number 3 in field goal percentage at the rim, and he was one of the only guards in the top 10. Or he was one of only 2 guards in the top 10 in drives per game. That was really early in the year, but that still spoke volumes to the drives. He's been number 1 in drives in 4 years. Shout out to Second Spectrum, what I love is 51% from the field at the rim, 89% from the free throw line, so 5.5 attempts getting him to the line from those drives and shooting 90%. 17 points, and he scores on, or his points total percentage at the rim is 71%. So 71 of his total percentage. I think it's okay to be a one-trick pony. If you're going to the rim and you're 71% of your total volume is coming within 5 feet. I think that's valuable when you're a 6'4" or whatever he is guard. I mean, he's pretty short for.
And if you're fouled, you're shooting 90% from the free throw line.
Right.
Which is also
6.9%
huge.
percentage, passing 33% of the time. None of it makes sense. And I'll be honest, I'm enjoying every bit of it as a neutral fan. Like, I think it's great, and he's unbelievable. And most improved player is a stupid award. If he doesn't win it, then I'll personally burn down the New York offices. There you go. That's it. That's all I have.
Yeah, I mean, as far as his efficiency and all the things you just mentioned, as far as statistics in the paint and things like that, it's one thing to drive in the paint as a guard. It's another thing to have that level of success, not only early on, like you mentioned, in the stats that kind of popped out to us early on, because like, okay, this is nice. This is a nice Thanksgiving storyline.
Well, he's also on his trend he was for drives recently, which is the part I was liking was, okay, if we're seeing this again, and last year he averaged, I still have it pulled up, last year he averaged 24.5, 81% from the free throw line, like I said, 18 attempts per game. So like similar, okay, well, we're going to get another 25 point per game thing. People are like, well, it's only 6 per game. He's averaging 31. I don't care if 30 is the new 20. Like, this is unbelievable from a guy who's of this. He's 6'5". I thought he was a little bit shorter than that. But a 6'5", 180-pound guard, he looks smaller than that when you're watching him.
Yes.
And for him to do that, for him to be that strategic with the paint and against bigs in that area, like, it just doesn't make any sense. Sorry.
Because on a team devoid of size, it really has to be him. Because, I mean, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl is not going to be the guy you throw the ball down to on the block. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. So I think, again, the addition of Chet may fluctuate these a bit. I don't know if we see a quite repeat of this next year, hopefully with Chet healthy a full year. But I think the potential is there because the success that we've gone over multiple times now is incredible. And it's, again, this is now an 82-game sample size. He played a good number of games, missed about a week in the back half of the season, but I think he would have played around 65 games if I had to guess.
Started 68, played 68 this year.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, and the attempts you mentioned, I think he's shooting like 20 times a game. And it's just the load he has put on his own shoulders and carried this team too, while improving in a lot of statistical areas, not depending as much on the three, which is honestly for him a good thing. Like you mentioned, attempts were down a couple, which is
but 35%. So I'm still getting what I want out of it.
Absolutely.
I'm a guy that if you're shooting 35% for three in the league, then I'm going to value you more than the guy that's not.
Right. And so it's been incredible to watch. I'm so happy that we get to see at least a game 83 out of this team.
Yes.
And it's going to be awesome for me on Wednesday. But I don't expect our playoff run to last until June when these awards come out. So I think that this will be a nice way to remember the season. And I think this is absolutely an award he should come home with.
That's the beauty of it, and I'll end with this so we can get Coach of the Year. It's the beauty of these awards is like sometimes like it's a huge win to be like, yep, this is how we remember our season. He deserves it, and this is what it's worth to us as fans. But at the end of the day, God bless them, because if they didn't make the play-in, like I would hate for y'all to be in that same stupid limbo where it's like the media's going to be like, well, they didn't make the play-in, so they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do with Shea. It's like that's not what we need
Still
to do.
Still tanking. We're going to trade him to the Raptors. It's just ridiculous.
Exactly. So it is what it is, and I'm happy that at least 10 feels like one, because at the end of the day, you're in. That's more revenue than you would have made, even though it's not a regular season game and it's not a playoff game. It's more revenue than you would have made. I'm trying to toe the line until they decide what to do with the play-in, but long term. But it seems like it's here to stay. But you made the play-in; it's impactful and it matters. All right, Coach of the Year. I want to do Coach of the Year quickly, and then the All NBA teams are going to be really funny. Yeah. So, really quick, Coach of the Year. I had Jacques Vaughn at 3, and the reason I'm bringing 3 up first is because ballot awards for midseason we did together. I had Jokic MVP, Paolo Rookie of the Year, so same there. Defensive Player of the Year, I had Jaren Jackson. Talked about why I didn't go with him again. Russell Westbrook, 6th Man of the Year. Glad you at least gave him a nod there at 3. Most improved player had Lowry. I think it was anybody's award to win and lose at that point, so it was good. Yeah. And then I had Jacques Vaughn because that was basically right after Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant started to tear things apart again. And then Jacques Vaughn showed what he can be with them, without them, and it was great. So all was fine and dandy, and they're not in the freaking play-in, so he deserves Coach of the Year voting. Right. Just because of that. He deserves to be a top 3 candidate because the freaking I don't care what Mikal Bridges did. Jacques Vaughn kept this Nets team in a top 6 seed, and they are not going to have to play this week. Like, let's just put that out there.
Yes.
They're not playing this week. It is a really important factor. I had Jacques Vaughn number 3. Who did you have?
I went with another coach in distress, had a little bit more success, Joe Mazzulla in Boston. I was between these two, quite frankly, at 3 and 4. I don't think there's a wrong answer between these two.
No,
I think that both experienced a lot of things were not expected. It can hardly be asked of someone for very different reasons. Joe Mazzulla, I believe, 34 years of age.
Yeah, pretty young.
Just to be handed the keys to the defending Eastern Conference champions in the wake of everything that went on with Ime Udoka, I think it's incredible to see this team sitting here at 57-25, the 2 seed. I think it's only poetic they're going to have to face Miami just because that's the last thing any Boston fan wants. But
they're all very public about it too.
That being said, we don't know, but we know it'll be Miami. But I just think the way he guided this team, Tatum, again, MVP ballot worthy season. Jaylen Brown, a couple weird injuries, cut his thumb picking up a broken vase or something like that the other day.
Pissed, but he'll be back. Yeah,
he'll be fine, thankfully.
So
Robert Williams, unfortunately, again, is he playing this month? Is he not? Flip the calendar, same question. I think a lot of things went into this, but obviously, just to be put in that position out of absolutely nowhere. I mean, that was a Onion article when it first came out. Like this, there's no way. He just won the Eastern Conference. There's no way this is real life right now. And then a week later, Joe Mazzulla, new coach. No one's ever heard of him. And now he drops the interim tag within the season, rightfully so, I think. And this team is rolling into, again, a defense of their Eastern Conference crown.
The only reason, this is no disrespect to Mazzulla, but the only reason I didn't give him the crown, actually 2 reasons, I just thought of one right now, was the proven track record of Jacques Vaughn as a coach in and out of different settings is important. And obviously it's not this year important, but also the different level of roster that they were both given. I'm sorry, but when you're handed the number 1 team already, you just got to keep the plane in the air, for God's sake. The plane just doesn't need to come down. Like, they were fine. I know, I understand people are going to be like, well, the unprecedented turmoil, whatever. The unprecedented turmoil Jacques Vaughn had to deal with is just the same. So, and it's from internal and it's players. It's a lot different than your coach.
His top 2 players left in the middle of the season.
And one of them was a psychopath when it comes to off the board stuff. So it just
Speaking of proven track records, Kyrie Irving, good Lord. I mean,
so you have to give Jacques Vaughn more credit because of the type of circumstance. It was the actual players that he had to strategize with on the court.
Right.
It was at least the Joe Mazzulla being like, "Hey, I'm not that guy." Right. I'm not that guy, pal. But like, he's like, I'm not Ime Udoka, and that is a win, and we're gonna keep rolling. And he did. It is what it is. I can't give him any more credit than that. I had number 2. I had, and I knew you were gonna comment on it probably, but I had Mark Dagnall. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. They led the Thunder without Chet to a 10-seed play-in is what I had written down.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of coaches out of nowhere, when Billy Donovan departed the Bulls,
I knew Billy Donovan was coming up. I knew it was happening.
To not rebuild, and yet we have the exact same record 2 years later. Whoops. So I think
to rebuild. Yep.
Right. Let me know how it works when DeRozan retires. So I think that ultimately he was the G League coach of the Thunder. We use the blue like a farm team, and realistically, we really do. We call guys back and forth all the time.
I had to turn tweets. I had to mute some of the tweets because it was like, oh my God, another PR communication tweet. Oh, and here it is again. And it was great.
Yeah. Now, in past years, our starting lineups towards the end of the year have resembled that roster, but this year, like you mentioned, we're a play-in team, so there was no mysterious Shea injury in January, anything like that. But I just really think how he has this team playing, you lose arguably your second best player before you really even get into preseason camp, and you're like, okay, go try and win 25 games, win a couple for the home fans, and you flip that into 2 embarrassing late season losses away from an even or better record. I think it's incredible. 24-17 at home, mentioning the home fans. I think they helped out a lot, which was nice. Really that weird last stretch of the season where we kind of needed Dallas to completely just drop a nuke on the entire structure of the play-in, which again, appreciate it. But I just think that
very worthy. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think he's as deserving of the recognition to be 2 as the guy that I think hopefully every ballot has number 1. I'll go ahead and spoil it. It's that beam
It's
behind you will turn purple in a couple seconds.
yeah, I forgot all about it. So yeah, I'll be quick on Mike Brown because I've been a Kings truther all year and I love him to death.
Yes.
I was actually shout out to TST Kingdom because I was pleasure of hanging out with Chewy and some of those guys on the Dallas. Funny you say Dallas for the Dallas game, and they single-handedly the calls were anyway. They lost that game and they shouldn't have. But the only thing to change in the last 18 months, other than a Saving Sacramento segment, was Mike Brown and Kevin Huerter.
Yes.
Really, no offense to anybody, and Keegan Murray, of course.
Right.
That was an obvious, but you can never assume a rookie's going to come in and do what he said. So, number one all-time in three-pointers as a rookie. The only two things to change, really, logistically, were Kevin Huerter and Mike Brown, and they were 30 and 52 last year and 12th. They are 48 and 34, and they are the third seed in the Western Conference. I just want that to be very, very uncomfortably loud in the microphone when I have to go play it down later in post-production. Third they are playing a first-round home playoff series.
Yes.
Next week.
Against the defending champions. Yeah.
Who cares who is against? We were 7 last time they were in the playoffs.
Yes.
I am married.
It was almost 2 decades ago.
Put that out there. Yeah. I am married. The last time I was like just getting out of diapers the last time that they freaking made the playoffs. Okay. The Kings deserve every bit of this credit. Mike Brown's an unbelievable coach. The only thing that scares me, I hate to be devil's advocate here, is I was really ready. I put it on my doc and I went, last year's defensive rating, they were 26th because a full season it's actually a good stat. Not until you get a full 82 games, it's actually a good stat. And then I went, full season this year, defensive rating I'm like, oh my God, they're like the same place. I thought they were a defensive team. They're the same exact place, basically. Yeah. They're within like one spot. So it's very
and the further from the basket you get, it gets quickly more concerning.
Yeah. He's not the guy on the floor defending players. Right. I get it, but he's the guy orchestrating those decisions. So I have to give them some kind of credit. They have been really good defensively this year. I know that doesn't speak volumes in that percentage or in that defensive rating, but at the end of the day, they will be able to scheme and game plan the Warriors. The problem is they lost a very important game this year against the Warriors because of a phantom foul call. So I'm really hoping that we don't have that happen again, and the Kings are known forever as the phantom foul call team. So I just need them to win the first round. I think it'd be unbelievable, and I'd love to celebrate with Sacramento. I really would. Yeah,
I mean, another quick aside on that Golden State first round series. I think a lot of people are looking at the Warriors and say, okay, pull Clay Steph. They're going to make 15 threes a game. And they're just going to wipe the floor with the Cinderella story, which you really can't call them Cinderella story. It's 3 seed. And I realize that. No. But, I mean, I was glancing at series odds out of curiosity today. I want you to guess for me who you think the favorite is and what that line is on the series.
I saw the text, unfortunately. But
okay,
they're like minus 300, and it's
that
stupid.
Is so disrespectful.
It's ridiculous.
And I am one that hates the Golden State Warriors for purely basketball reasons. For more than almost anybody you'll ever meet in your life, because 2016 happened, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. But
I can't wait to see where the money ends up when the series begins. Yeah, 78%.
I cannot believe you can currently go invest your money in the 3 seed to win a series at 2-1. I just think the NBA Twitter meme potential of that certain
Kings
split
after pod is done. Thanks. All right, cool. Yeah, I just texted myself a reminder to go make a Kings bet.
And a reminder, this Golden State team will have to win a road game, something they've done 11 times this year. They are 11 and 30
history
on the road, and that includes beating the Portland YMCA All-Stars by 50 points the other night for nothing more than to let Jordan Poole flex on whoever's courtside. So I think that's another large concern. So it's going to be who's, I guess, ugliest aspect of their team is going to get exposed the most. So I think it'll be a great series. We might have another race to 200 game like the Kings have the Clippers in this series. So if you like points, I would lock in on this one at least 4 games of this series. I don't think it'll be a sweep, but we're only guaranteed 4, obviously. So, another leak into the playoffs, but I think that's going to be another really good series.
No disrespect to De'Aaron Fox, but let's just tie the Kings bow together and move on to all NBA teams. De'Aaron Fox is the Jerry West Trophy. It's the inaugural Jerry West Clutch Player of the Year. I don't have any stats written down. I've watched the Kings more than I ever thought I would. He's ridiculous. He obviously is top 3 and top 5 in most of their statistical categories when it comes to clutch scoring and stats. But Like, whatever. Like, he's the best.
Led the
player
league in
clutch.
clutch points, shot 53% during that time
There
period,
it is.
86% from the free throw line.
Figured you had it written down.
Oh, I just couldn't believe it. Like, I knew he was, first of all, I guess it's because I knew he had this award locked up in like mid-December. So I was like, okay, I can kind of put this on the back burner.
I'm surprised Luka hasn't like taken. If Luka wins it, I'm not surprised. I just want to be clear. Like, if he wins it, I'm gonna be like, well, okay, whatever. But
I don't know if the NBA is going to give the Mavericks recognition for anything. But
that's
that's
actually a really good point.
You really got to.
That's a great point. It's a great.
Luka
point.
walks up to get his award as like the Adam Silver, like guys in suits coming to arrest Mark Cuban for what he just did to play in. But I think that this is for this year the De'Aaron Fox Award.
All right. Let's just rename it because no disrespect to Jerry West, but after De'Aaron Fox,
he's the logo. We understand. Yeah.
It is really funny though because like he's won in whatever all time in finals. Like it's just funny. I'm a Lakers fan and I still think it's stupid. He got the award.
Regular season award, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Good point. All right, all NBA teams. Let's hit them quickly because I mean we're gonna talk about them however long we end up doing it. But first team is pretty much law and lock. So unfortunately. And I say unfortunately, we were going to talk about this eventually. Unfortunately, the last year we can say guard, forward, center. So let's make this count. Let's make this.
This is the last year this actually matters.
Yeah,
so
let's just say this. I will be very quick on this. I love the games played thing, and I will be in the minority on that. I think 65 is completely fair.
I agree there.
70. I also am in the camp that I think 72 is what the season should be. So I'm kind of contradicting myself, though, because it's like if you play 65 to 72, you're playing 90%, basically. It's like whatever.
Right.
So I believe in both, and right now that's okay because one of them's a rule. So, but guard, forward, center is how it should be, and I think it's stupid because I don't care how we want to remember a season. It's not a memorial. It's a how we represent the NBA, and there are still positions, whether people like it or not. Luka's a guard, Shea's a guard, Jason Tatum's a forward, Giannis is a forward, and Jokic is a center, and that is who I had as my 5. That was my segue beautifully.
Yes.
We have the
same thing. I flipped and beat Jokic just because of my MVP case.
Oh, yeah, you have to. Yeah, that's fair.
But yes, those 2 centers will be 1 and 2, and the 4 prior to that were exactly what I had. So, and we've harped on a lot of these guys. Luka, incredible year. He had the unfortunate circumstance of being teammates with Kyrie Irving, so you can't really blame much on him.
Or having teammates that are not good teammates. That's also important.
Yeah, Luka not involved in roster construction. That blame can be placed elsewhere. Jason Kidd is his coach. We'll see how long that lasts, but I think
I'm not on the right side of that record. Okay, I'm leaving those comments alone.
It's okay to be hopeful. I too had good things to say at the time, but now don't. I think that. Yeah, these are the 5, and whether you have Jokic or Embiid, I don't think there's a true, again, wrong answer there. The 4 prior to that seem pretty much. I mean, these guys are all on MVP ballots, sans Luka. So I think that it's pretty. I won't say cut and dry just because of the MVP debate, but for the most part, I think this is a pretty easy first team.
Second team. I'm gonna just tell you. Obviously, I have Joel Embiid second. I'm not gonna make that suspenseful because obviously. Right. Yeah. Now let's get to fun. So, who do you have as your 2 guards?
I have De'Aaron Fox as one of them.
All right. So then this is already getting weird. I have De'Aaron Fox also because I did not think you. I thought we were going to be differentiated there but when you sit down, and we'll get to it in a second. But when we sit down, you said you talked about it today earlier with me. When you sit down and you really do this and you really try to figure it out,
yes,
he's a second team guard.
It's incredible. Yeah. Now, player, yes. And I think that we get too much caught up in the player aspect of this, which it's natural to because, things happen like Steph Curry's injuries. That's the only reason I don't have him on here on second team. So I think that in the context of a full season, it is not as surprising as one would think to have De'Aaron Fox here. I don't know if he ultimately lands there. I think he should. Obviously, I've got him here. Putting it on the record is my opinion. But, yeah. And again, memorializing each season with these awards, I think it should be taken seriously. Like, when you think back on this season, you've got to have De'Aaron Fox on one of these teams. And for me, at least, it will be the second team.
My All-NBA first team in February, Luka, SGA, Tatum, Giannis, Jokic. My second team was Mitchell. Jaylen Brown at the time was playing more minutes at guard. We'll get to that in a second. Durant, LeBron, Embiid. What I have now, I'm with you. I have De'Aaron Fox. I have Joel Embiid. We just have them flipped. I have Donovan Mitchell. I don't know if you said that yet as your second guard. You have De'Aaron Fox. I think we're just doing one by one, kind of flipping it out here. But De'Aaron Fox, I have Donovan Mitchell, and I think you probably do also.
Yep, I do too.
Okay. Donovan Mitchell's just been ridiculous.
Right. It's just insane. His, especially just like Embiid lately, has been just incredible down the stretch. This team, and you may think it's okay, he's incredible. One of the maybe the best acquisition in the offseason, to be quite honest. Going from Utah to Cleveland, a team where you say, oh, they have Garland, how's that going to work? I mean, it worked, because when those two guards are on the floor along with Allen and Mobley, this team is incredible. And you may think on its face, well, they're the 4 seed, but I think the teams in front of them are incredible. And I think that 4 and having a guy second team All-NBA is perfectly fine. I mean, De'Aaron Fox at 3 seed in the West, you don't always have to pluck guys from the top 1 or 2 seeds for these just to get you rolling. I mean, it's weird, but I mean, Steph is a 6 seed this year. It is what it is. And he's going to be a contender in this. So I think that, seeding some people may use a bit too much. I think that, again, a 4 seed for Cleveland historically without LeBron there is a bit unbelievable. So I think that you really have to put that in perspective. This is not the LeBron Cavs teams that just rolled through the East every year. This is a completely rebranded franchise. They brought in Donovan Mitchell to put them into that next tier of teams, and I think he's done that. And I cannot wait to watch this team in the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's even more beautiful. We'll talk about the Knicks in a few minutes, hopefully. But it's even more beautiful who they decided to go with, obviously, over him, and or the Knicks, excuse me. But Donovan Mitchell is my other guard as well. I think we probably both have Jaylen Brown as All-NBA second team, just because when you look at positions, and if you didn't know, you definitely know this.
Oh, I cheated.
People that don't know. Well, people that do know, like this is actually, then you maybe do know this. So Jaylen Brown, played 58% of his minutes at small forward this year. You have to know, that if you are going to be making an All-NBA team, people need to know this, not for you, but for whoever. If you're going to be writing down or commenting on this and you comment a position, I'm immediately going to go look up what they played.
Look at where they played,
play by play. It's only been available since 96, right? It's really good stuff for turnovers per 100 possessions, too, is really good. But he has only been, the on-off court stuff is really good, too. He has only been a player at small forward 58% of the time, power forward 3% of the time, and shooting guard 39% of the time. So he is a forward, period. I think people don't understand that. Yeah. Jaylen Brown's been a top 15 player in this league this year, and arguably in this case top 10 because of the way it works. So Jaylen Brown is deserving of it. Jaylen Brown stepping into Jason Tatum's absence on the court for him. When he's on the court, they're up 5 points. When he's off the court, they're -4. So they're better when he's on the court. Excuse me, I'm stuttering through this. But he is an unbelievable player. He's deserving to be there, and I think it's ridiculous if people don't have him, because I've heard a lot of people say they don't have him at all or on third team, and it's just like when you sit down and you do this, he is a guy that should be there, and he played also, to make that matter, 67 games, averaging 26.5, 6.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 49%, 33%, and 76%. So Jaylen Brown is a ridiculous choice not to have him there.
Yeah, I think there's a natural inclination, and it's hard to shake it, honestly, when you think about it, but if a guy's the second best player on his team, some people hesitate to put them second or even third team. And I think that there's cases where that's correct. This is not one of them. I think he's an incredible player. It's been a little weird watching him in the mask. He's just got the weirdest injury luck. I don't really know how else to describe it. We mentioned the gardening incident earlier that's got a slice down his hand. Thankfully, as you mentioned earlier, he'll be okay for the playoffs, it would appear, so that we're going to see this Boston team at full strength, and we saw how far that got them last year. So I think it's full steam ahead for this team, and this team would not be in this position without Jaylen Brown. So again, like Klay Thompson will not be on an All-NBA team. That's another really, really good second option around the league. But Jaylen Brown is deserving of it. And that just speaks to how good Boston is. They've got 2 players, 1 first team, and in our opinion, 1 second team. I think broadly 2 All-NBA players, which is not groundbreaking stuff, but it just speaks to how good that Boston team is. And they're kind of lost in the East this year, being the better conference, I think, with Milwaukee, Philly, Cleveland. So I think I'm happy we agreed there with Jaylen Brown, because I thought you may have him third team. I figured you'd have him at least on the ballot at a minimum. But I'm happy to have a consensus there with Jaylen Brown.
I'll tell you the truth. I'll get to why later, but he would have made it if he was a guard. And I'll tell you why in just a second when we do third. The
That would have
weird
been so much tougher for me.
The weird, yeah, it would have been hard because of Curry and Lillard and some other guys.
Right.
The weird one was All NBA second team forward number 2. I had Julius Randle.
I've got Jimmy.
I knew it.
And I was between those two. I really, really was.
All right, I'll save my thoughts till we get to honorable mentions. But okay. I hate to do this because I don't want to keep going on forever. I want to keep this close to.
No, you're fine.
Give me 30 seconds why Jimmy Butler deserves to be there because I don't think he's a top 15 player this year. I'm sorry.
I just think I'm a little bit more impressed. I'll stop short of bias towards guys that are just the driving force behind teams. This Miami team, historically one of the more stable organizations. They always find a way to be good. They're not tanking, anything like that. I just think that, did they set out to be the 7th seed this year? Absolutely not. We're joking about them playing the Celtics, and that's not where they want to be. They want to be, I think they are truly feared by Boston just because of what we saw last year from this team. But I just think I have a lot of respect for Jimmy Butler and the effort he puts in. If he's on the floor, he's playing like it's literally life or death. I could be persuaded out of it. I just think that, again, when guys are the reason their teams are, in his case, in the play-in barely, I think that I've got to give some sort of nod to him. And I didn't find a way to prior to this. There really wasn't a way to do it. Is second team a little high? Maybe. I just think that that's one of those guys that I've followed through his career, and I'm higher on it than maybe I should be, and that probably is reflected in this. But I think like Jaylen Brown, he's got to be on here. It's just tough. And like I mentioned earlier, I spent an hour today just going back and forth, rewriting these second and third out, trying to find one that I could read out loud and put my name on. And I think that Jimmy had to be on one of these for me. But I could certainly be persuaded with a Julius Randle case. It was very, very tough for me. But that's who I have on second team.
Yeah, the team thing sucks because without him, I mean, God, they're fighting for Victor Wembanyama. I mean, I don't care. Yeah. I don't care about Bam Adebayo. I don't care about Kyle Lowry. Who's one of the worst.
That doesn't move the needle for me. No,
exactly. But his field goal percentage is 53.5 or 53.9 this year. So 54%, 48 last year on basically the same attempts. 2-point percentage shooting 57% from 2. 85 from the line. His 3-point percentage went from 23 last year to 35 on the same attempts. Like, something's flipped. I mean, the defensive end is part of where I leaned against, was just because you average 1.8 steals doesn't mean you're a good defender always. And he's starting to show his age a little bit, and I didn't think he was as impactful as a defender despite the 1.8. But all right, I don't want to linger on Jimmy Butler too long. I could see it, and we'll get to it in a second. Jaylen Brown, we went with there at forward. Julius Randle, I went with. So I guess the question is, we'll stay on forward since we were just talking about Butler. I don't have Butler there, which is why I said we'll talk about him with honorable mentions, because I just had to go with some of the, like, when I encapsulate a season, when I think about how a season was thought of. I'm sorry, but I thought of this season more with Anthony Davis and Lauri Markkanen, which is who I went with as All-NBA third team.
Yeah, I know I did it with Jaren Jackson Jr., but the Anthony Davis thing, when he's on the court, he is absolutely, he might be.
He's more important than LeBron James this year when he's on the floor.
Absolutely.
Period.
Yes, I would agree.
That matters. That's why I did it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the 7th seed across the bracket in the West. So I think that's absolutely a fair point. And maybe public discourse has tainted my view on Anthony Davis. The street closed line will ever live in infamy, for better or for worse. Because like you mentioned, this Lakers, talking about fighting for Wembanyama, I mean, they had to shut down LeBron in mid-January without Anthony Davis, because this team just would not have had the life that they do. I think with that duo on the court, and as AD emerging as the best player on that team, night in, night out, impact-wise at least, I think that's – he was my first guy off, and it came down to games played, and I'm going to contradict myself immediately with one of the guards I have on this list, again, due to impact. But I think that I really can't make a strong case against Anthony Davis other than for the 80th time we've brought it up, the games played part, which I hate because it takes away from the accomplishments that they had when they were on the court, and injuries happen. Especially with bigs. I mean, look at Zion Williamson. That kid who's on the court is electric, but his body just cannot take it. And thankfully, Anthony Davis is not that prone to injury. But in recent years, it's been tough to to watch him watching this Lakers team.
At the end of the day, Jimmy was the first off for me, so it's not a disrespectful point to either of them. It's just the fact that when I think of this season, I think of offensive impact. That Anthony Davis stretch, I can't think of one moment right now that Jimmy Butler had or stretch that he had that would have kept this in.
It was much quieter.
Yeah, Anthony Davis's play this year was better, and sometimes the better player deserves it, despite the games. Obviously, wouldn't qualify next year, but 55 this year. So, right. Lowry, I went with. Did you have Lowry as well?
I did not. I had Curry as a guard on third team.
I went with forward. What about? I went with Anthony Davis and Larry Markkinen. What about forward?
I thought you said Lowry. Never mind. My bad.
Oh no, Lowry. Yeah,
I was
no shot.
All right, Trevor. Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Lowry. Yeah, Laurie. Sorry, I did say
Laurie Markkinen. Absolutely deserving of an All NBA nod for me.
We talked about him earlier too, so that's good.
Right. Yeah. Runner-up in the most improved race, but I think that his flowers should come in the form of an All-NBA nod. I'm glad we have him both on here. We alluded to a couple times now, just making sure that certain teams and players were recognized when you look back on the season, and you can't look back on the season without mentioning Lauri Markkanen's name. They took the league by storm for like a month. Like Portland and Utah were like the top 3 of the West for weeks to start the season, which was insane. And of course, things shake out how they do over the course of an 82-game season, which of course produced the emergence of Walker Kessler, which we've touched on. Danny Ainge might go to prison for what he did to the Timberwolves, but I think that, this Jazz team is special. Record won't reflect that through the course of the season, but I think Lauri Markkinen, my Dynasty League king, is certainly deserving of an All-NBA nod, and I'm, again, really, really happy that we have him on here.
Yeah. All right, you mentioned guard already with Steph. Go ahead and get it out of the way. You have Steph at guard. Who do you have as your other guard? And I'll tell you mine, and we'll discuss.
I have Steph, and then I've got Damian Lillard as my 2 guards.
Okay. So, Damian, I'm with you. On the court, that team you mentioned, YMCA All-Stars, off the court.
Without him, of course. Yeah.
His on-off is stupid, and it doesn't make any sense.
It's bad.
His guy I have, though, instead of Steph on the other side, when I think of this season, and I think of, you mentioned most impactful off-season transaction. I was going to get to this. Jalen Brunson was the most impactful off-season transaction, and he's proved it. And I hate to give the Knicks a second and a third team guy, but they're a top 5 seed in the East, for Christ's sake. They deserve this conversation. Jalen Brunson is ridiculous. 25 a game, leading this New York Knicks franchise into mass hysteria, and honestly, just leadership, impact off the court, on the court, best ball handler, best lead playmaker. It doesn't make any sense sometimes, and he's 6 foot tall, and I'm just giving you everything that should be right and wrong against him. But Jalen Brunson, I think, deserves it over Steph, and I know Steph was really awesome, but honestly, I forgot Steph played the last 2 months, and that's kind of the crappy part about some of the injuries.
It was
timing.
Forgettable.
It was, and that's the problem. I give Jalen Brunson regardless of when it happened. The Knicks have the 3rd best record since December 1st, and he's a big reason for that.
Yeah, I mean, my nod to Jalen Brunson came in the form of the most improved player. I had him 3 for what it's worth, but I could hear that case all day and be swayed, especially down in the 3rd team. He was in that pool of players I had written off to the side as can I shoehorn this guy in here? Weighing guys head to head.
Yep.
Right. And again, I'm a Thunder fan, so you think, why am I giving Steph Curry credit? He's just that good. And like you mentioned, he was in and out, mostly out of the lineup, missed a lot of games. But I think, again, going back to impact, you take him off this Warriors team. I don't care how good Clay looks once a week. I mean, this team is not great.
No Wiggins, too, for a lot of the year.
Right, which I'm very, very happy to see him back. But, I mean, they lost Curry for a year, and this team picked number 2 overall. Now, they completely missed on the pick, but they picked number 2 in the NBA draft.
This is true.
In the midst of what some say is a dynasty. So I think that, again, impact, and I may be overusing it in certain cases, but again, I may be leaning towards names in this case too, because Steph Curry, obviously automatic Hall of Famer, greatest shooter of all time, all these things. But when you zoom in on one particular season, he's on 3rd team, which in October, none of us would have had. And I think that, am I boosting him up above guys like Brunson? Maybe unfairly, potentially. That's just more of his giving him credit for the greatness coming in and the benefit of the doubt there.
That's what's going to be, and this is not an All-NBA debate, but it's at the end of the day, it's how you value it, and if that's what you value, then I'm not going to discredit anything. It's the point for me is like I don't care enough about one more All-NBA because, by the way, when you look up and you argue as somebody who's going to be working on a top 75 or a top 100 NBA player all-time pyramid this year, spoiler. Jalen Brunson's not going to be on that list. Spoiler. Steph Curry will be really high on that list. Spoiler. Yeah. But the point is that all NBA teams aren't all NBA third teams. We don't count the team. We count how many times they were on a team. So that matters. And if that's okay with you, that's great. I think Jalen Brunson, I have to look at it from season to season, and that's the way I value it. And he was unbelievable this year. And I know people are going to say, well, that means he's a top 15 player. He kind of played like it. So I kind of have to give him that. So talking
about engines behind teams. Yeah, Jalen Brunson fits that category absolutely.
And that's the part, like you mentioned, like for most improved player or whatever. It's like sometimes impact and some of this other stuff, and how much do we weight star name, whatever. Like take a guy off a team is another one. Yeah. I think that matters less for third, like all NBA especially, but third team specifically. It's like if this was an MVP conversation and there was no clear fourth and fifth candidate, Steph deserves that conversation more. Yeah. I went with Sabonis because he was the only guy, really, and when you sit back and you went centers, he was really the only guy left, which is kind of crappy, but he was also 100% of his minutes were played at center this year. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me because I specifically remember him playing power forward in my head, but he just never did. Literally never. So 0% at power forward, so he was 100% a center. Obviously wouldn't have mattered as long as it was above 50. Sabonis deserves to get some kind of credit, and that is the credit I'm giving him.
Yeah, just missed my MVP ballot. Did not miss my All-NBA teams. He is also my third team center.
All right, I'm going to be really quick on honorable mentions and then one point I want to make, and then we'll get to all rookie, all defensive, and we'll rapid fire made-up awards. So really quick, honorable mentions for me, see if you had any yes or no. Jimmy Butler, Steph, obviously. Jaren Jackson Jr., games played would have hurt him regardless.
That's true, yeah.
I tried to grand landscape best players on some of the best
ballpark that, absolutely, though.
Evan Mobley and then John Morant.
Ja was one I wrote down initially, and I just started thinking about the season in context, and I realized that a lot of it has nothing to do with basketball. That's the part I hate the most about it. But I mean,
but we would, if we were voters, I would have to consider it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when you look back on this season, the first thought about Ja that comes in your head is not going to be a 40-point game on a Friday night. It's going to be all the crap that happened in the last month or two. So, and the suspension and everything else to follow that. But I think sans that, he is absolutely right up in this tier of players. But unfortunately, he's also in the miss category for me, but he's not far off.
You could have talked me into him over Damian Lillard or Steph, and honestly, that's how you had your team anyway. So that would have been like that's the next guy off. And then actually, Ja is not my last one. Mikal Bridges is my last one, and I'll tell you why. When you sit back and you do like the position thing and you do some of the how this year really looked to you kind of thing, like I did. I was between Anthony Davis and Mikal Bridges for that fourth spot, for that third team spot. I texted in the group. I wanted to keep our ballots pretty secure, so before we talk about them. But I literally sat and I said, "Why am I between Mikal Bridges and Anthony Davis?" And I said, funny enough, and this is my point. I'm segueing to end this plane or land this plane. Is guys not eligible next year? So really quick, I went through the top anybody that scored more than 20 points per game this year. I just went, how many games did you play? Because that's most of these guys, other than Sabonis, are in that range. I went with Mikal Bridges as honorable mention because Anthony Davis's impact consistently when he was playing was better than Mikal Bridges. It's hard to say he wasn't. Mikal had a really good stretch at the end of the year. But next year, and the reason I brought it up, next year Mikal Bridges would have been all NBA third team in my ballot because I couldn't have put Anthony Davis. And why I'm bringing this up, guys not eligible next year that scored more than 20 points per game this year: Anthony Davis, Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, Giannis, Kevin Durant, who played 40 games this year, Kyrie Irving, John Morant, and Jimmy Butler. I just gave you 1, 2, 3, 4.
You could make an All-NBA team out of that list, honestly.
Yeah, I just gave you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people that will not be on it next year if they do not play more than 65 games.
All-stars at a minimum. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's ridiculous that's going to be the case, but I'm honestly, again, I made it the point. I'm really glad because those guys should be playing more than 55 games. Obviously, I know that it takes injuries into consideration too much, especially with a guy like AD, but I think
availability is an asset at the end of the day.
So but not consistently. It is. And it's not something I want to hang my hat on, but it is important.
No. And there's wiggle room within that as well. So correct. I think that's a fair way to put that. Yeah.
All right, really quick. All rookie first team, all defensive first team, and the made up awards will actually be more fun. So I went with Jaden Ivey, Jalen Williams, Keegan Murray, Paolo Banchero, and Walker Kessler.
5 for 5.
Nice. Okay, so Jaden Ivey did. Okay. Yep. The only guy you would have thought about maybe would be Benedict Mathurin. And I think
right. And I think midseason I would have probably I think I did have him in there potentially. So. But yeah.
All right, all defensive team, Drew Holiday, Alex Caruso, OG Anunoby, who was first in total steals, first in steals per game, and second in deflections, just throwing that out there as why he probably should have been in over Draymond Green. Evan Mobley and Brook Lopez.
Yeah, I had Drew and Caruso, Mobley, Lopez, and of course, Jaren Jackson Jr. Might have been defensive player of the year.
So no OG because of the wrist injury and stuff.
Yeah, he was. I've got him right here next to it. Giannis, OG, a couple of names in here. Nick Claxton as well.
Yeah, I feel guys like that's a tough. We only did first team, obviously, but
correct. Yeah, they would land on the second team.
We would be here all night if we did all the teams.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So why isn't Claxton not a first? It's like this isn't.
Right.
I just don't do those kind of pods.
I don't. And like you mentioned, it goes down the same as the data point legacy was. So
yeah.
But yeah.
I don't particularly care about all defensive second team. I think we should just get rid of it. Who are the best 5 defenders in the NBA this year?
Right.
With it. But anyway.
6 through 10, take it or leave it. Yeah.
I can't even tell you an all defensive second team other than when Marc Gasol, I think, was first team but not an all-star. I think was kind of the only defensive team that ever mattered. But anyway. All right. Made up awards, we'll rapid fire, and then obviously can't do an NCAA title pick, but I don't remember what your last one was before you left.
Houston.
It probably was Houston, yeah. So yeah, same here. But we'll do title pick off vague play-in results that we don't have. Made up awards really quick. Surprise team, who do you have?
I mean, it's the Kings.
Yeah,
as a Thunder fan, it is the Kings. Yeah.
Like, what? 12th to 3rd just doesn't. They win the award, period.
Yeah.
Biggest disappointing team, we both have the Dallas Mavericks.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Honorable mention, the Warriors on the road are awful.
I'm going to remember that this year. I am.
More road wins than Pistons, Rockets, Spurs, end of list. That is embarrassing in a title defense.
Very fair.
Yeah.
Should have been fired mid-season. That one, for those that weren't here for mid-season awards, should have been fired 3 weeks ago, I think is what I said, or a month ago. I had 3 candidates. Before I give you my answer, I'd love to hear what you had.
Steven Silas, only to give him more time to escape this franchise. I think that
they're about to fired. That's the best.
They're about to re-enter. I wish it happened a month ago for his sake. They're about to re-enter year 0 of the rebuild for like the 4th time with a roster full of 19-year-olds and 30-year-olds. So I mean, there is a man out there or woman that can come in and fix this. It's not Steven Silas, and I don't think we need to keep. And now Darvin Ham has done great with the Lakers, but they throw these young coaches in here.
Yeah.
With these, I mean, there's more talent on the Lakers, obviously, but I mean, for this to be his break, I mean, that's just tough. I think there is someone that will maybe fix this team. It is not Steven Silas. I think that was pretty clear earlier on, and I hated to see it just dragged out to have him be the punching bag night in, night out.
Miserable.
I thought that was unfair. He's not the one in the draft rooms trading anything for these guys. So,
I think the talent's there. I think there's a lot of guys with really good talent.
I think so too.
The problem is they just don't. They're not playing together well, and it sucks.
No, and like it's just there is a situation, right? And I think just. It didn't benefit Houston to keep him that long, and it definitely did not benefit Steven Silas to stick around that long. So for that reason, for more his benefit alone, I went with Silas.
Okay, so even though he got fired already.
Right, yeah. I wish it had been earlier. Yeah.
Okay. Who would you have done if it should have been fired midseason, as in like the guys right now that we've ended the season with as head coaches? Was there another one?
Well, it's tough because the reason that the kind of tank job happened somewhat seriously, and Kyrie Irving happened, after the midpoint. But I mean, Jason Kidd, head has to roll after this year, and I think you start a head coach.
Funny enough, and the reason I wanted to close with that, with what I had written down was should have been fired mid-season. I copied and pasted from should have been fired a month ago at mid-season, and I had 3 candidates, and I had Steven Silas, Nate McMillan, and my choice, Steve Clifford. All 3 of them,
right? They're all gone.
2 of them are gone. Steve Clifford is still there somehow.
Yeah,
and some of his comments and some of his, defensive antics and saying that some guys were better when they actually weren't. Shout out to James Powright for that. But I had to go with process elimination because the other two guys are fired. So I was like, well,
You were
Steve
too
Clifford
good
has
with
been
it at
horrible.
midseason.
It was beautiful. It was like, oh, wow, all these two guys really do suck, and only one of them's
Right.
left. So I went with the one left. All right, really fast. One player you could have on your team, not by trade. For those that are new here, I like this. I'm going to start doing this with every guest if I can and remember, but with you specifically. And it's going to change. It changes all the time. Mine last time was Tyrese Halliburton. I wrote that down. I left that down.
Yep, I remember that.
One player you could have on your team, not by trade. They literally just magically appear, and then a player of their same caliber is on their old team, so it doesn't imbalance the league.
I spent weeks praying a draft night trade for this player would happen just a couple of years ago. The guy we got in Josh Giddey instead held the consolation prize. But Evan Mobley, you would look so much better in Oklahoma City because I would make irresponsible championship bets if you were in Oklahoma City right now. But sadly, you are not. We do have Chet waiting in the wings.
Yeah,
I would love just to have like a WWE entrance with him on Wednesday night. Just let him play like 5 minutes just to do it. But
I don't think they could technically because they've already filed the injury exception as of last week, I think, or something like that.
But there's no way. But
he is really
warming
funny.
up pregame. Yeah,
is it worth the $500K? It would cost.
Come on, take a second round pick. We have 40. We don't care.
I would love to see them literally the width of a basketball court. I'd love to see their front court, your front court, just literally like stand arm to arm and like see if they
would
go
be
from one
some
to the other.
Spacing issues with that, absolutely. But yeah, Evan Mobley. I mean, we touched on earlier with some defensive things with him and how his role has kind of blossomed with the Cavaliers and how that team's looking as, again, a result of his play early in his career. But Evan Mobley down low would be incredible.
Giving me Tim Duncan vibes. Tyrese Halliburton is still a very good answer, but I tried to keep it to right now with the year we've had as a Lakers team. I went with Jalen Brunson. I think Jalen Brunson on the Lakers would be ridiculous, and it honestly reminds me of the Knicks a little bit. So it's like a little bit older, but I think he would have that same kind of impact playing with some really impactful guys. Honestly, playing. That's no disrespect to Julius Randle, but Jalen Brunson with Anthony Davis is title worthy. Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle is they could win the title this year. Referencing old articles there, but going to take a miracle. So, all right, title pick, plugs, and then I'll close it up.
My gut instinct was Phoenix just because of, you had Kevin Durant to a perennial contender. I don't know how to go against that, but I'm going to. Give me the Boston Celtics to redeem themselves. They got to the finals last year, kind of fell flat. They had a real opportunity to seize control in that series, and they lost to a much more playoff and finals experienced team in the Warriors. I don't think that will happen again should they get there. The Suns also a bridesmaid recent finals, so I think we could maybe see that matchup, Celtics-Suns. But yeah, give me the Celtics. Would love to see Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown get a ring. There's probably some obscure Thunder bench player somewhere I can root for. I'll figure it out. Joe Mazzulla's story goes from, just absolute stunner to one of the better stories in recent memory coaching-wise. That would probably be the youngest coach ever to win a title. I think I can pretty safely say that. But
by about 10 years, probably. Yeah.
Right. Give me the Celtics.
All right, so Celtics over the Nets. Or not the Nets, jeez. I said, you said Kevin Durant earlier, and I was like, Nets? No, Suns, right?
Yes.
All right. I have bad history of being like the Philadelphia 76ers are my NBA title pick, and I've been wrong too many times, and I don't know why I would even think that would be any different. But that does not mean I'm picking Philly, to be clear. That means, to the camera, really quick, not picking Philly. Let me be honest. What that means is I'm very bad about not changing my prediction based on the fact that I have no gun being held to my head, not saying I can't change it. I'm going with Celtics Nuggets. And I do think that Celtics defense is going to be really, really good, assuming will Robert Williams play. When you mentioned earlier, I really love the flip the calendar thing. It was like, wow, it's May 1st. Is he playing? Nope. It's June. Let's give it another shot. If they can somehow get there even without him, I think they can win. Problem is, I think if you're going to stop Jokic in any way or slow him down, to be clear, I think if you're going to slow Jokic down, you're going to need Robert Williams. So
absolutely,
I do think the Celtics are going to win the title this year. I think the Bucks fans are going to unsubscribe, but that's okay because I think Giannis is that good. and they went to a 7-game series without Chris Middleton, and he's playing. So it's going to be really tough to pick against the Bucks. Problem is, I think their supporting cast, I think this might be one of the worst they've ever had under Giannis.
Yeah.
So it is Drew Holiday or bust again, and they literally won the title last time I said that. So here we are. History does repeat itself. It is okay. All right, plug away, and then I'm looking up youngest NBA head coach because now I'm curious, and I'll answer it, and we'll get out of here.
Perfect. Yeah. I actually do a podcast of my own, two college roommates of mine, Bailey and Jacob. It's called the 1009 podcast. That's the apartment number we lived in college. We talk a whole lot of sports all the time, a lot of baseball, not a lot of NBA, which is why I love this podcast so much when I have the opportunity to come on. I appreciate it as always, Trevor. And we are on Apple and Spotify, the 1009 podcast, and then on Twitter at the 1009, trying to eclipse 500 followers here soon. So if you want to help with that, I will greatly appreciate it.
Everything will be linked in the description below. If you don't count the 1947 Bullets, wherever the heck they were located, it was Steve Kerr in 2015 at the ripe age of 48.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, would blow
Missoula
the record out of the
while.
water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, how old is Joe Missoula? Because you said it earlier.
I think he's 34. I think
he seems so much older. He's 34.
Yeah. So he has a decade and a half to get at this record.
Yeah, I think he can do it. I think they can do it. I think it'll be this year. I think we're in agreement there. All right. Let me do the plugs really fast and get out of here. So everything for you will be linked in the description below. Twitter will be on the screen. Subscribe. Keep pushing you guys through baseball. Help me out with baseball, please, God, because I'm doing my best because of the TV and all of this BS with the MLB TV. You're helping me out because I can't keep up with baseball half the time anyway, much less when I'm trying to cover NBA drafts. So please and thank you for that. Feel free to subscribe to everything with their stuff below. 2 Pointers on Twitter, SeatGeek. It's $20, not 20% off your order. Code 2 Pointers, and I think that's it. I'm tired, honestly. This has been a really good pod. I'm really excited to be back in the saddle with the NBA. The play ends this week. There's going to be playback TV streams for me here. It's going to be really fun. I'm not going to put you through that live on Tuesday, I think it is, or Thursday, Wednesday, whatever it is. I'm not going to put you through that. We'll if they make the playoffs, we'll do a Thunder playback TV stream, and I'll be clear that it is explicit. So without further ado, on behalf of Grayson, this has been the 2 Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett, and I know it's not March.